Good morning and welcome to Morning Java here on DKPittsburghSports.com. I'm Chris Carter, NFL analyst, here with Dale Lolley, NFL beat writer, and we're here talking, of course, it's the opening of free agency. And Dale, everyone's flustered. Why aren't the Steelers doing anything?
They very rarely do, Chris, in the opening salvo of free agency, and you've seen them. Some of the contracts that have been signed thus far
are huge,
ridiculous. I looked it up yesterday. In fact, going into this free agent period, Le'Veon Bell's $14.5 million one-year deal.
So much, right? That's like the most ever.
Made him the 40th highest paid player going into this. 40th. That will change greatly after today and tomorrow.
Today alone, we can leave tomorrow out.
Yeah, tomorrow will be another day. You get the opening salvo, and we started seeing some of that come in yesterday during the legal tampering period. But you'll see some of those other deals start to come in as this week continues. And, you know, it's just crazy money being thrown around.
Yeah, it's being thrown everywhere. We'll get into that later. But I think one of the points, Dale wrote a great grind story on the website, DK Pittsburgh Sports, yesterday. And it posted, I think it was really important. It caught the essence of why the Steelers are never huge free agent players. Because all these teams that have $60 million, $70 million, $80 million, $100 million in cap space, it's because they don't have a core of a team set. You saw for years that was the Jaguars. Then they were able to go get some, then eventually they became it. But it took them like 10 years to get them back to be relevant.
People ask, well, why can't the Steelers build that defense? All you need is like 5 top 10
draft picks of horrible years. Right. And I mean, even teams like the Colts, it's like they are devoid of a whole bunch of talent, whereas the Steelers have one of the best offensive lines, really good defensive linemen, some young linebackers, a secondary that's young and growing with a talent that like Joe Hayden, not to mention...
And a quarterback that they're paying.
Right, and a franchise quarterback, which was the point of your article, is that the Steelers have a franchise quarterback, and a franchise quarterback that knows how to win and has chemistry with the offensive players around him, who are also some superstars themselves. That precludes you from having to go out and get those superstar players in free agency. I know it's fun to read those off and say, ooh, Malcolm Butler went there, and ooh, this guy went here.
Allen Robinson got signed this, $17 million year deal.
Exactly. That's fun to read about. But the reason the Steelers don't have to do it is because they've consistently been good over the years. They know who they draft, and they don't have to throw guys out nearly as much as other teams.
Yeah, and yes, you're going to miss on draft picks. Every team does. And that's sometimes when you have to go out and fill in for a free agent. You have to go get yourself a free agent somewhere along the line. That's the way the Steelers view free agency. It's a supplement to build your team. It's not the way to build your team.
Right. Now, specifically focusing, Dale, on what the Steelers are doing to get ready for free agency or just the future itself. They've made a lot of restructuring moves, and yesterday they restructured Alejandro Villanueva's contract, like we said on this show would happen, and freed up about $4 million more in cap space. Now after they tagged Le'Veon Bell, they were about $2.8 million in the hole, but that's knowing that they're going to cut Mike Mitchell, which is going to free up about $5 million in cap space. They're going to cut William Gay, which they announced already. That's going to free up about $1.75 million in cap space. So now, all told, you have about almost $11 million coming off. You're going to get around $8 million freed up, when you count in the money that they're already owing. And there's still some more moves that they can probably do.
They have some wiggle room, Chris, and there's some things that they can do, whether it be releasing some other players, which I don't know that they're going to do that unless they absolutely have to.
Right.
It would have to be somebody that they really want to get, like Dante Hightower last year.
Yeah, he was the guy they really chased.
They would pay for that, but by and large, they're going to do it by restructuring. And when the Steelers, that's the one thing that Le'Veon Bell needed to understand last year when he started looking at, well, you're not guaranteeing me a lot of money. The Steelers don't give out big first-year guarantees.
No.
What they do is give themselves the ability to restructure down the road. As you saw last year, Antonio Brown got $19 million up front with his new contract. Meanwhile, you had other guys like DeAndre Hopkins getting $43 million up front with their contract. But Antonio Brown got a payout this year of $12 million in restructure bonus money, which now gives him $31 million in guaranteed money, which puts it more in line with what everybody else is kind of getting, when they redo their contract.
It's what the Steelers have done for a long time. Back when they were trying to keep together that late 2000s defense, they restructured a lot of guys to say, hey, trust us. we're gonna sign you for this, but we're going to, and it's not gonna have all the guaranteed money these other players around the league, right, this year, but we will eventually give it to you so long as, you don't tank out, which I think is, one, a safe move by the team, and whereas to players, they could choose to look at it and say, whoa, you're giving me a short end of the stick. They know if I perform, they're going to take care of me.
Well, and very rarely have the Steelers ever got into a situation like they are, for example, with Mike Mitchell this year, where you've kicked some money down the road with restructures and then released a player in that final year of the contract.
Right.
Typically, if they restructure somebody, it's because they know that player is going to be around for the length of that contract.
Right, and that's just the case with Mike Mitchell being gone. Now, of course, we're talking about what the primary needs are right now for the Steelers in free agency. Before we get into all the craziness that is free agency, you talked about some, of course, there's inside linebacker and free safety needed. My thing is this, Dale. If they invest into one of these positions, it's going to push that need back in the draft order, and it's going to thrust up the other.
Well, I could see them both signing a inside linebacker early, or I'm sorry, drafting one early and signing one for big money, because Vince Williams
is up for a contract next year.
After next year. So you could have a situation where you bring a guy in like Lawrence Timmons in 2007, where he sits for the first year, gives you a solid backup at both of those spots, and then moves into the starting lineup in 2019.
Now, would that be wise? Say you get Avery Williams from the Titans, who's out there in free agency and could fit in the 3-4 scheme nicely, but would you be willing to draft Leighton Vander Esch and let him sit on the bench when a potential
What if
future...
he doesn't sit on the bench? What if he beats Vince Williams
What if he beats Vince Williams? But also, here's the other consider. What if you're passing up on a superstar safety that's sitting there, right?
See, I don't know that's going to... We won't know how the draft is going to break down.
It's way down the line, yes.
And a lot of the free safety types in this draft. Now, if you're looking at a Landon Collins or something like that, okay, you take it. You take that guy and you put him in strong safety. You move Sean Davis to free safety.
Right.
But in this situation... if you're going to just draft a free safety, I mean, Justin Reed's probably the best guy available from Stanford, and he's got more of that, 30 to low 30s to 40 grade right now. Now, that doesn't mean they couldn't take him at 28. Yeah, at 28, because typically you can just kind of throw a blanket over the picks 20 through 50 in any draft. But if you can take that safety a little bit later and still get yourself another linebacker to add to the system, why not do it?
Certainly, we'll have a lot more questions as far as what the Steelers will do to shore up this defense throughout the offseason. Now, Dale, of course, lots of moves being made across the NFL. We were talking about some of those moves. Some of the more notable ones, Malcolm Butler just went to the Titans for a big deal.
Chris Hubbard just struck it rich.
Chris Hubbard got a 5-year, $37 million, $18.5 million guaranteed with the Browns.
People thought that the Steelers should. I got this question. Could the Steelers just sign him and let Marcus Gilbert go?
Yeah, okay. Marcus Gilbert.
It would be a wash. I mean, you're gonna pay Hubbard the same as you're gonna pay Gilbert.
And Gilbert's a much better player. He's a much better player, athlete, and everything. But
not that Hubbard's bad.
Right.
But somebody was gonna pay him big money on the open market.
Right. And I think plus you can see the difference. I sat with this man all season in the press box, and every time Marcus Gilbert wasn't in there, he said, "That's another red zone drive without a touchdown when Marcus Gilbert's not in there." And he said, "It was guaranteed, man. I'm telling you, Dan will tell you too." But Marcus Gilbert has to be there. He's a key right tackle. It's understandable, and we knew this. We knew this. The way Chris Hubbard played in 2017, teams are like, we want that guy. He's no longer going to be a backup tackle. But like I said, with Malcolm Butler, he's going to. It's crazy. The Titans literally took the 2 starting cornerbacks from the Patriots' last Super Bowl championship team, and now they're their starters outside the numbers. And then there's all these other teams making moves. I mean, the Packers went and got Jimmy Graham and let go of Jordy Nelson. Dale, is there anything that's really surprising you right now, or do you think people are, and of course the big move everyone's talking about, Kirk Cousins getting $84 million, all of it guaranteed in a 3-year deal?
Well, Kansas City's been a free spender, which has been they went out and paid $9 million a year for Anthony Hitchens, an inside linebacker who kind of sets the market. Sets the market there. Sammy Watkins is another guy they've gone to get, and they've been aggressive with the trades. So that's a team that's been very aggressive thus far. Obviously, Cleveland has been very aggressive.
They've been all over the place. On. Jarvis Landry. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And they got rid of Kaiser, brought in Tyrod Taylor. The Cleveland Browns. Everyone's going crazy. They're in the playoffs, of course. Calm down. They're the Cleveland Browns.
They're still the Cleveland Browns.
This could all implode.
Tyrod Taylor's still not
a franchise
he's
quarterback.
still probably the fourth best quarterback in the division.
Yes.
Even behind Joe Flacco and
Andy Dalton, of course.
The other thing that I look at, don't be surprised if Jordy Nelson ends up in Baltimore.
In Baltimore, of all places. I thought he would have been a Patriot type of guy, especially with them losing Danny Amendola.
Baltimore likes to sign those big-name, old wide receivers.
This is very true.
And try to get Flacco. I mean, a guy he is a red zone target.
He is a red zone target.
He's a guy who can score touchdowns, and that's what they need. They need that kind of red zone.
That can develop that rapport with Flacco.
They always like to have that guy who's kind of, as I said before, Flacco's whoopee.
He loves that term. I tell you.
And you
right
look
now.
at Jordy Nelson. I mean, Jordy Nelson has kind of been that guy, for Aaron Rodgers. So it just makes sense.
Last thing before we go to what's in your cup, Kirk Cousins. Give me your readout. I think it's ridiculous that you pay this guy who had a losing record as a starting quarterback. I understand it was with Washington, but he had a losing record, and you're guaranteeing 3 years, $28 million a year to this guy. And if he gets hurt, it's all his. If he's horrible, you can't cut him because it's all going to him. What is your readout from this move?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, if you identify the quarterback that you want in free agency and that you want to be your quarterback, and they had three guys on their roster. You already had Bridgewater, Keenum, and Bradford. And those guys are getting paid around the league.
Yeah, Bradford's going for $20 million at the Cardinals.
And Keenum's going to sign with the Broncos. I think if they feel like he's an upgrade from those guys, go ahead and do it. They've got a Super Bowl type roster.
They do.
They
do have a
very
great
good roster. So, you give it 3 years. You figure it out. I mean, it's not like they signed him for 5 years in guaranteed money, which is what was happening with like Sam Bradford when he came out in the draft. Sam Bradford has cashed more money than any other player.
Off of nothing. He has an even worse record than Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Goodness.
He's made over $200 million in his NFL career.
You think that with the Browns were, I mean, they epitomize working horribly with quarterbacks. As you look across the NFL, there's tons of guys that have never done anything that resembles what they should be getting paid, and they're getting these huge contracts.
That's just the way it goes in free agency.
And now it's time for What's in Your Cup, the segment where we take questions from you, the subscribers, and answer them here on the show. Dale, today's question, Steeler-related, coming from RK98, who we're paraphrasing your question because it was a long one. Basically, while the Steelers' offensive line is very good at pass protection, they're not exactly elite in run blocking. And RK98 feels that with Le'Veon Bell, the way that he runs, he masks a lot of the problems that they have up front with run, and he thinks he creates the runs more so than the offensive line, because he feels the other offensive lines open up holes better. And if you brought another top tier running back in here, they'd be running into the backs of linemen.
Well, here's the thing, RK. The Steelers, since acquiring Le'Veon Bell, have kind of adjusted the way they block.
Very true.
To his running style. So now, instead of doing as much drive blocking, now you're setting more screens.
Yeah.
It's kind of a basketball thing where you're just kind of holding the guy up a little bit and allowing Bell to pick his hole. So it's a different running style. Now, if when they didn't block that way when they had D'Angelo Williams. At that point, they were still doing more of the straight open up the holes, power runs, and those kind of things. With Le'Veon Bell,
it's more zone.
You run more zone type plays and allow him to find the cutback lanes.
Right, and I think that's the danger that Bell brings, not only with the quick feet, but the vision that he has. There's times that I've been looking. You can see if you look on the coach's cam and get that behind the line view. It's like, whoa, how did he even see that from where he was? But he just finds his way into it. So yes, I do agree, RK98, that the bigger part of their success is because Le'Veon plays the way he plays, but also they've geared that around him because they recognize we can do a lot more work. We can put a lot less stress on our offensive line if we allow them to block like this and allow him to just plunge forward.
And one thing people tend to forget when they keep bringing up Le'Veon Bell's 3.9 yards per gain average last year, and we talked about this guy earlier, Marcus Gilbert.
Yeah, he was
missed 10 games last year.
Yeah, and he's a huge part of that right edge.
Yeah, he's probably their best straightforward run blocker.
Even over to Castro?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of power running, I'll take Gilbert.
He does seal people extremely well. I've been saying this for years. Marcus Gilbert's the most underrated offensive tackle in the NFL. It's a shame he has never been elected to a Pro Bowl, even in the same season that he shut out Von Miller twice. But I digress. Thank you for the question, RK98. And thank you for watching. Morning Java here with Dale and Chris. Be sure to stay tuned through the week. We got lots of news coming at you. NFL free agency. The Penguins are on their push to get to the playoffs. And, of course, Lance is covering the Pirates as best he can as they're getting ready for the season
opener. Pitt is open camp. Penn State opens up next week.
Lots of stuff. And Kenny Pickett's going to be the guaranteed quarterback at Pitt. So lots of great stuff. Stay tuned here at DK Pittsburgh Sports.